Hello, and welcome to the latest Superintendent's Update. It's a chance once a month I sit down with Superintendent Eric Conti and talk about what's going on in the school district, what's coming up, and anything else of interest. So, Eric, welcome back.
Thanks, Rich.
And last month we had Bob Kuna in here for you, and he did a good job, just so you know.
I'm sure he did. He did a better job than me. So,
oh, well, who knows about that? But so basically, first thing I just want to start is just how are things going? You know, we're a month into the new school year. How are things?
Well, again, I think the school year's been going smoothly because of our teachers and principals do a fantastic job. So I think most of it's been going well. I think we had some transportation challenges that we typically have every beginning. I think they were exacerbated a little bit this year because we have a new company and some new drivers. But I think those challenges that we're facing are getting better and better. I'm not saying we're fully satisfied yet, but we're working to make sure that we have good solutions. Part of a prior conversation that we've had is we're seeing more of our students spread out over a larger part of Burlington.
Right.
So I think some of the challenges we have are new. So it's not just applying the same fix to what we've always done. But I think we're seeing improvement on the arrival and dismissal of students. And again, once the students are here, I think the programming that's been taking place has been, again, as it always is, very exceptional. And I think kids are learning.
Excellent. Well, that's a good thing.
It is.
So just talk about some of the new things this year. We've got the Innovative Pathways grant. I know there's other programs. What are some of the opportunities that are being presented to the students?
Again, I don't want to wax on too much or you can bring me in if you need to, but I was saying sort of the structure of public education now is really, in Massachusetts, was a lot of it was developed about 25 years ago. So it was with ed reform movement. That's when you had the introduction of standards. That's when you had the introduction of assessments, and sort of that model of standards and assessments has been slightly modified, but really been in place for about the last 25 years. What we're working on now is not trying to look back the last 25 years, but we're trying to look ahead sort of for the next 5 or 10 or even 25 is too long because things change much more quickly now, but we're trying to look ahead. So programs like the Innovative Pathways, I think, get students connected to groundbreaking industries much sooner in their learning careers, because what we're seeing by visiting a lot of the companies around, and I can tell you a little bit about that in a minute too, is they're not necessarily looking for students who test well or content skills. They're looking for students who can apply knowledge to new situations. Many of the companies that we talk to say, by 2030, 40–50% of the jobs that students will be looking for don't even exist right now. And the context of that is we've just registering at the class of 2032 and into kindergarten. So, I mean, as scary as the future sounds, that's sort of with us now. So the Innovative Pathways grant in Burlington, there was one of 4 high schools, I think, that were given that designation, largely due to the efforts, again, of Shireen Terrell and some other teachers, and I hope you do more of a feature story on that.
Oh, absolutely.
What we were looking for is more of a direct connection to computer science and expanding computer science opportunities, and especially where Burlington is located. There's lots of opportunities for internships and then mentoring, and I think that's part of what we've been really trying to expand is more authentic learning, more practical learning. And our senior internship program, again, has grown from, I think, 3 or 4 students 4 or 5 years ago to now we had over 200 last spring. So I think getting students out, getting them in those authentic learning environments, and I think you had a couple interns even here at BCAT. So trying to get them in the workplace, I think was one of our goals.
Yeah, we had a great intern here, and we have a lot of students that just sort of spend their lunch and after school time here, and they talked about their internships with like the police department, and I think one was, and just different businesses. Just to backtrack real quickly, so the Innovative Pathways, that is connecting students with local businesses and other organizations, right?
Well, again, I think it's much more targeted than that. So I would say the senior internships, or sort of our capstone, are where we get students into different organizations, businesses. Could be BCAT, could be the police, could be whatever. But there's a narrower band of that where we are trying to get kids connected through the innovative pathway directly into computer science or engineering. So that's a more narrowly focused pathway. Okay. And we've had to institute, just because of the proprietary nature of some of those organizations, something called a reverse internship, where we actually don't send kids out to an organization like MITRE because they really can't have access.
Right.
But the engineers are coming to us and working with the students here, and I think that's been great. Because what I mentioned, and I've been working with my Middlesex League colleagues, and those are the 12 basically surrounding communities, is we get together about 5 or 6 times a year. We actually have a meeting coming up this Friday, and we do field trips. We do superintendent field trips, which are sort of funny. But our field trips have been to, we've visited Amazon Robotics, we've been to the Microsoft garage in Kendall Square, we've been to Millipore Sigma, again a very generous host. We're going to Mimecast, which is a cybersecurity company in Lexington, on Friday morning.
Interesting.
And we basically take a tour of the facility, and then we talk to their recruitment officers and say, what are the skills that you're looking for, in future employees? And again, none of them say, filling in a bubble test or taking a test. They all, again, they certainly want kids to have content knowledge, but they also want them to have good work ethics. They want them to be able to collaborate, work with others, solve problems that not doing the same thing sort of in a rote way, but again applying creative solutions to new situations. So we have to create, I think, a curriculum that offers more opportunities to do that.
Excellent. Sounds like exciting, interesting things. So, that you said that was a grant from the state. What other kind of cooperation with the state or state funding opportunities or issues are you looking at right now?
Well, again, we're sort of in the middle of the process for changing the school funding formula, which the state funding formula, which was also developed 25 years ago. And again, there's been some modifications and upgrades, but this would be the pending bill, the Student Opportunity Act, would be, I think, the most significant overhaul in the school funding formula in about 25 years. And that is looking to get more state funding primarily to urban centers, gateway cities, parts of the Commonwealth that I think have been underfunding or have been struggling to fund schools because of a reduction in state funding over the last how many decades.
Right.
So again, Burlington has, the community of Burlington has been very generous. We've been somewhat insulated by that. And again, I want to make sure I recognize the community support of public schools. So this isn't a woe is me conversation, but you asked sort of in general.
Right.
That's going to have a big impact, and they're even looking at things like, for us, special education costs, especially for students who are placed out of the district, are something that can impact our budget significantly. There's some state relief for that called the circuit breaker. We're also responsible for transportation, and sometimes the transportation costs are as much as the educational costs. And the new Student Opportunity Act is making those transportation costs eligible for state reimbursement as well. So that will impact Burlington directly. So I do think there's a part of this bill that will help everybody, including Burlington. And again, the Senate passed it unanimously. It's now in the House, and we hope that it goes smoothly, and then the governor signs it in the next month or so.
We'll keep track of that. I know our state representatives and the state senator are both, pushing for it. So
I did. Again, spoke to Senator Freeman last week. She was fantastic and wonderfully supportive. And Representative Gordon, again, has also, we talk fairly regularly, and I think he was also very supportive of the act as well.
Right. The last thing I wanted to touch on real quick is, I know on the school website you had posted that the MCAS scores from 2018 or 2000, the latest ones,
right, last spring,
and that they were showing growth towards target goals. I think was the term that was used.
Okay.
Just talk about your thoughts. I know you're not a big test for test's sake guy, but how does the school department use this information to kind of help students grow?
The state testing, I think, has a purpose, and the purpose of the state testing is to make sure that we're delivering sort of the state standard, the state curriculum. And if we're doing that well, and with the talent of teacher that we have and school that we have, I think the vast majority of our kids should be able to do well on the sort of MCAS. I just don't want to live and die by a test score. So
Right.
I would tell you, even if we had the best test scores in the state, I honestly wouldn't dwell too much on them. And I want our kids to do well. I think that's important. I think there's potentially some scholarships that are there. Hard part with MCAS scores more recently is they've completely changed the test in the last couple years. So now we're on next generation MCAS, which means the standards have changed a little bit. So there's been a total recalibration of that. So we're making growth,
Yeah.
but growth based on what? And I'm saying I'd rather be making growth than not making growth, but I'm saying it's not something I would necessarily hang my hat on. I think, again, we should do well given our population of students, given our community. Our standardized test scores should be average, high average, because standardized test scores largely reflect the socioeconomic status of the students who are taking it, education of parents, and those type of things. But we use it to make adjustments in our curriculum. So if I'll give a bad example, if in 8th grade the science standards involve light energy, and we're not teaching light energy, then our students aren't going to do well in those test questions. So we have to make sure we're aligning what we're teaching when with potentially what the state is going to ask questions on. So I think we use the state test data to make sure our curriculum is aligned. I think what you and I have been talking about prior to the camera being on is I make a distinction between assessment and testing.
Right.
And so assessment, from my perspective, is can happen in formal ways, it can happen in informal ways. When a teacher greets her kids walking into a classroom in the morning and says, "Good morning," I think she's doing an assessment on sort of who got sleep, who didn't, who's grumpy, who's happy. I mean, it's those micro assessments that help a teacher adjust her teaching in the moment or adjust her teaching in the week, something that's much more immediate.
Right.
And again, the hard part with state testing is we took the tests last spring. We're just getting the results now. If we make adjustments in our curriculum, you're not going to help the child who was taking the test or in that curriculum. You might help the next generation of kid or the next year's worth of kid, but it's not immediate. So part of my distinction is with sort of the timeliness and the usefulness of that information. And again, there is a use globally, but it's a really difficult thing to adjust your teaching or adjust the student experience in the moment, in the week, to make sure that they're maximizing their performance, given the challenges that they're facing. So that's the distinction I would make with assessment. Is it's much more useful, again, in the day-to-day, week-to-week planning that a teacher needs to do to meet the needs of her students.
Great.
So I know a little bit granular, but again, I just want to stress that we're as school leaders, again, my colleagues and I, we're really trying to have a better understanding about what knowledge and skills companies, organizations want to see in the people who they're employing, and making sure that we're preparing kids to meet those requirements, and that's actually causing us to rethink some of what we're doing, which I think is a good thing.
Excellent. Well, I think it's good to know there's so much thought kind of going behind the future success of our students here in Burlington. So, and I think we've hit on a bunch of topics, probably good enough for the residents of Burlington for this month. But we'll say it's good to have the students back here in the school, and it's it's sort of quiet over the summer, and it's nice to have them back. And we appreciate you coming back in and doing another update.
All right, Rich. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.